Okay, U.S. President Donald Trump now signaling he could impose tariffs on Canadian fertilizer. What does this mean? We're joined by William Pellerin, partner and international trade lawyer at McMillan. And William, thanks as always for joining us.
Happy to be here, Roger.
Okay, so a month ago, the White House said that there would be no reciprocal tariffs on fertilizer. Now we're here and they're mulling it, they're musing about it. What has changed?
Honestly, this is the biggest head scratcher that we've had in quite some time with the U.S. administration. Clearly, the U.S. president is hyper-focused right now on bringing costs down for farmers. One of the ways that they're looking at this is in terms of the farmer supply chain and getting fertilizer costs down. And for that, the objective appears to be to bring to onshore a lot of fertilizer production. The problem is that in the short term or even the medium term, imposing tariffs on Canada as the primary supplier of potash fertilizer is, of course, going to increase costs significantly on U.S. farmers. So we're trying to sort this one out and try to understand it in the broader context, and it may well be one that needs to be dialed back a little bit.
And I mean, they can't meet the potash demand, can they? They simply don't even have it there.
That's correct. I think it would take, I think by some estimates, 3 to 5 years to even just reduce some of the dependency that they have on Canada with respect to potash.
Is this another shot in the CUSMA negotiations, or is this? Do we even know where this is coming from?
I think it goes to the broader trend of what we're seeing from the United States administration in terms of reshoring supply, to make sure that the United States is making absolutely everything that they can in the United States, and seeing everything as kind of a net win for the United States has to be as a loss for other sides, including Canada. We've seen this with autos in particular, where the U.S. has said that the United States is going to make autos and it won't be in Canada. And so this might be something that the U.S. is thinking about also. In this case, however, I think they'd be so far away from moving the needle anytime soon that I think it still plays to Canada's advantage, particularly with U.S. farmers that are really feeling the hit of U.S. tariffs.
And now, if these tariffs actually did go into effect and we started to see a drop here, are there alternate markets for Canada when it comes to potash and other fertilizers we provide to the States?
It's a good question. Not sure that anyone can make up overnight what we ship to the United States, but I think the more important piece there is that even with a very high tariff, I suspect that the answer is that U.S. consumers and U.S. farmers are going to have to absorb it. The U.S. does not seem to have other viable sources. There are other producers of potash globally, whether Russia or others, but ultimately they're going to need the supply for the next foreseeable future before they can even ramp up. And so I think it just ends up being one of those situations where the importer truly bears fully the cost of this tariff. And it just means that the U.S. administration is going to need an even further support package to U.S. farmers. They announced in the last day or so an additional $11 billion U.S. to farmers to compensate them for increased costs caused in part by the trade war. And so this only adds to the confusion if they're going to add additional costs on top of that.
A bigger picture, what can we expect going into 2026? I imagine the talks for CUSMA will start in full, though they probably have been kind of going on, haven't they, with everything that's revolving around here. What can we expect, though, heading into 2026?
I think it's actually sitting down at the table and when those negotiations fully start. CUSMA review is not, in theory, supposed to be a full-fledged renegotiation. We know that. However, we, of course, know that the United States is going to take this opportunity to extract concessions from Mexico and from Canada. I think we're going to see in the coming months an increase in the rhetoric and the threats of pulling out of the USMCA. I think we're going to see the U.S. make demands around manufacturers onshoring back into the United States. We've seen that in a number of other sectors, particularly aggressively, for example, on the pharmaceutical side, and in autos. I think we're going to start seeing quite a bit more suffering from Canadian exporters, particularly in sectors now very hard hit by tariffs like wood products, furniture, kitchen cabinets, and the like, that are really going to amp up the pressure on the federal government to do something here in Canada. So that whole dynamic is really coming to a crux as we move into January and February.
And can you see Ottawa helping out those areas that you feel may be hit, or are they going to have to be wary on how it's perceived south of the border?
I think there is definitely some help that will have to occur. There are tens of thousands of jobs in, just wood product manufacturing alone across the country that are, we're seeing many of them are clients of ours, negative gross margins, already a number of layoffs, trying to avoid layoffs before Christmas, but they're happening anyways. So the federal government's going to have to do something. And then the question is, what does that look like? And can we structure this in a way that doesn't open Canada up for further retaliation against other countries, whether it's the United States or China or others? So I think it's about choosing the tools judiciously and understanding where the threat lies to Canadian manufacturing.
Okay, William, thank you as always for joining us.
My pleasure.
William Pellerin is partner and international trade lawyer at Macmillan.